The champagne cork popped somewhere down the hall as I stood in my tiny Toronto apartment on Christmas Eve, watching my daughter Victoria examine the stack of overdue bills on my kitchen counter. She wore a coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her diamond earrings catching the light from my single working lamp. "Dad," she said, turning to face me with that practiced smile she used in her charity foundation videos. "I wanted to ask you something. How are you enjoying the lakefront condo Marcus arranged for you? The one in Muskoka?" I felt my coffee mug slip slightly in my grip. "The what?" "The condo," Marcus said. "He set it up for you 6 months ago. A beautiful place on Lake Rosso. He told me, you go there every weekend to relax. Get away from the city noise." Her voice was bright, expectant. I set down the mug carefully. "Victoria, sweetheart, I've never been to any condo. I haven't left Toronto in over a year." The smile froze on her face. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I heard footsteps behind her, and Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face draining of color as our eyes met. "But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here, to this moment that would crack open my daughter's perfect life like thin ice over deep water. My name is Robert Patterson. I'm 63 years old, and I worked for 37 years as a maintenance supervisor for the Toronto District School Board before my knees gave out. I raised Victoria alone after her mother passed when Victoria was only 8. I worked double shifts, sold our house in Rosedale, moved us to a modest apartment in North York. I wore the same winter coat for 15 years so Victoria could have piano lessons, summer camps, and eventually a degree from the University of Toronto. She met Marcus Whitmore at a fundraising gala 7 years ago. He was everything I wasn't: smooth, wealthy, connected. His family owned a chain of luxury hotels across Ontario and Quebec. Within a year, they were married in a ceremony at Casa Loma that cost more than I'd earned in 5 years. I was happy for her, truly. She deserved a good life after watching me struggle for so long. But something shifted after the wedding. The weekly calls became monthly, then occasional. She was busy with Marcus's business ventures, with the charity foundation they'd started together, with galas, and golf tournaments, and summers in Provence. I understood. The wealthy lived in a different world. I saw her mostly through social media now. Victoria and Marcus presenting a giant check to Sick Kids Hospital. Victoria and Marcus serving Christmas dinner at a homeless shelter. Photographers capturing every moment. Victoria and Marcus announcing a new scholarship fund for underprivileged youth. I was proud of her charitable work. I really was. Even if she hadn't noticed that I was eating canned soup for dinner 4 nights a week, that my building's heat barely worked, that I'd been wearing the same 2 pairs of pants for 3 years. And now, here she stood in my apartment on Christmas Eve, asking about a condo that didn't exist. Marcus recovered first, his businessman's reflexes kicking in. "Robert, I think there's been some confusion. Let me explain." "What confusion?" Victoria interrupted, looking between us. "Marcus, you told me you set Dad up with the Muskoka place. You showed me photos. You said he loved it there." "Those were photos from the rental listing," I said quietly. The pieces were falling into place in my mind, cold and sharp. "Weren't they, Marcus?" He loosened his tie, that polished composure cracking. "Victoria, darling, perhaps we should discuss this at home." "No," her voice was steel beneath silk. "We'll discuss it here, right now." "Dad, you're saying you've never been to any condo?" "Never." I moved to my small desk, pulled out my calendar. "I've been here every weekend for the past 6 months. I volunteer at the library on Saturdays. Church on Sundays. It's all written down here." Marcus's jaw tightened. Robert might be confused. At his age, memory can... "I'm 63, not 90. I cut him off. And my memory is fine. Why would you tell Victoria you gave me a condo?" "Because he needed a tax write-off." Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. She was looking at Marcus now like she'd never seen him before. "That's it, isn't it? You claimed it as a charitable expense somehow. A gift to my father." "That's ridiculous," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Victoria pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. I'm on the foundation's board, Marcus. I have access to the financial reports. Let me just check. Oh God. Senior housing support for Robert Patterson. $850,000. What is this? My heart nearly stopped. $850,000? I can explain, Marcus started. Then explain. Victoria's hands were shaking. Explain why our foundation's records show we paid nearly $1 million for my father's housing when he's clearly still living in this. She looked around my cramped apartment, really seeing it for perhaps the first time. The peeling paint, the thrift store furniture, the space heater because the building's heating was inadequate. How long? She whispered. How long have you been living like this while I thought? It's fine, sweetheart, I said, though my voice cracked. I get by just fine. But she wasn't listening. She was scrolling through her phone now, her face getting paler with each swipe. The scholarship fund we established in your name. $1.2 million. Marcus, where did that money go? To scholarships. The students? What students? Give me names, Marcus, right now. He said nothing. The silence stretched out like a frozen lake, dangerous and vast. Outside, I could hear carolers singing Silent Night somewhere in the building. Inside, my daughter's perfect world was shattering. I need to see the foundation's complete financial records, Victoria said, her voice eerily calm. Every transaction involving my father's name. Every single one. Victoria, you're overreacting. We can discuss this after the holidays. We'll discuss it now. Dad, do you have a laptop? I nodded, retrieving my old Dell from the bedroom. Within minutes, Victoria had logged into the foundation's systems. I watched over her shoulder as she navigated through spreadsheets, her breathing getting faster with each screen. The Senior Medical Fund. $600,000. Specialized care for Robert Patterson. She looked at me. Dad, when was the last time you saw a doctor? My knees. About 4 months ago. The clinic near Young and Eglinton. The free clinic? I nodded. Her hands were shaking so badly now she could barely type. The Vehicle Accessibility Grant. $175,000 for a modified van for your mobility needs. She turned to me, tears in her eyes. Dad, do you even have a car? I take the TTC, I said softly. The bus and subway? Marcus stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to these accusations. Victoria, you're my wife. You should trust me over these misunderstandings. Sit down. The command in her voice surprised both of us. I'm not done. There's more, isn't there? The renovation fund. $300,000 for making Dad's home wheelchair accessible. She looked around my apartment again. I don't see any renovations. I don't even see a wheelchair. Your father is being ungrateful, Marcus said, his tone turning ugly. I've been managing the foundation's finances while you play at charity work. Someone has to make the difficult decisions. Difficult decisions? You've been embezzling from our charity using my father's name. Victoria's voice rose. How much, Marcus? How much in total? You don't understand business. Then make me understand. Make me understand how we raised $4.2 million for various programs to help my father and other seniors, and my father is sitting here wearing a coat with duct tape on the elbows. I looked down. I'd forgotten about the duct tape. I'd been meaning to sew on a patch. Marcus's mask finally slipped completely. Your father chose this life. He could have asked for help. Instead, he sat here in his pride and his poverty, making me look bad at every family function with his shabby clothes and his bus pass. So yes, I used his situation to our advantage. The foundation needed operating capital. Donors love stories about helping struggling seniors. Your father was perfect for the narrative. Our advantage? Victoria stood up, her whole body shaking. You mean your advantage? You've been stealing from people who donated in good faith, from people who wanted to help seniors like my dad, and you used my father's name, his dignity, his actual suffering to do it. Prove it, Marcus sneered. Prove I took $1 for personal use. Every transaction went through the foundation. Every cent is accounted for. Then you won't mind when I call the Canada Revenue Agency tomorrow, Victoria said. Or the police. Or both. The color that had returned to Marcus's face drained away again. You wouldn't. Watch me. I'll also be calling our donors personally. Starting with the Richardsons. You remember them, don't you? The couple who lost their father to neglect in a care facility? The ones who donated $800,000 specifically for the senior housing program? I wonder how they'll feel knowing that money never helped a single senior get housing. Victoria, please, get out. Her voice was ice. Get out of my father's home. Actually, get out of my life. I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow. You're my wife. Not for long. Leave. Now, Marcus looked at me, then back at Victoria. For a moment, I thought he might argue more. Then he grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the walls. The silence he left behind was deafening. Victoria stood motionless for a long moment. Then she slowly sank into my worn armchair and started to cry. Not delicate tears, but deep, wrenching sobs. I'm so sorry, she choked out. Dad, I'm so sorry. I've been so blind, so stupid. While I was posting photos of our charity work, you were here, alone, struggling, and I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it. I knelt beside her, my knees protesting. Sweetheart, you didn't know. I should have known. I'm your daughter. I should have visited more, called more, actually looked at you instead of just. God, Dad, when was the last time I actually asked how you were doing? Really asked? I couldn't remember. I was so caught up in Marcus's world, she continued. The galas, the foundation, the image. We were so busy being charitable that I forgot about actual charity. I forgot about you, my own father, who gave up everything for me. You didn't forget. I did. That comment at the last gala, someone said charity begins at home, and I laughed it off. I actually laughed. Meanwhile, you were here, eating canned soup and riding the bus while we took donations meant to help people like you. She pulled out her phone again, wiping her eyes. I'm calling a lawyer tonight, and an accountant, and the CRA. Marcus is going to pay for this. Every cent he stole, every lie he told, every time he used your name. Victoria, it's Christmas Eve. I don't care. This can't wait. Her fingers were already dialing, and she did call. Right there, on Christmas Eve, while I made us tea. She called her lawyer, who was surprisingly understanding about the late-night call. She called her accountant, who promised to start an audit first thing after the holiday. She called her best friend from university who worked in financial crimes investigation. By the time midnight struck, bringing Christmas Day, the wheels were already in motion. The weeks that followed were a blur. Victoria moved into a hotel, filing for divorce and separation of assets immediately. She hired forensic accountants who tore through the foundation's records like wolves through snow. What they found was worse than we'd imagined. Marcus hadn't just used my name. He'd created an entire network of fake beneficiaries, fictional seniors with fictional needs, all generating very real expense claims. The Muskoka condo did exist, but Marcus had been using it as a personal vacation property while claiming it was for my use. The modified van had never been purchased. The money had gone into a private account. The scholarships had never been awarded. The medical fund had never helped anyone. In total, Marcus had embezzled over $3.8 million from the foundation over 4 years. Victoria was relentless. She contacted every donor personally, explaining what had happened and promising full transparency. She turned over all the evidence to the authorities. She testified before the foundation's board, recommending a complete restructuring and independent oversight. The story hit the news in February. Prominent Toronto charity scandal. Millions embezzled using false claims. Marcus's photo was everywhere. That polished smile, now looking sinister in the media coverage. The trial was in April. held in the downtown Toronto courthouse. I sat in the front row, Victoria beside me. She'd bought me a new coat, and I'd finally agreed to accept it, along with her insistence that I move into a better apartment. Not charity, she'd said firmly. Compensation. You were used without consent. That entitles you to damages. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that the money had been legitimately spent on foundation operations, that the expenses were reasonable administrative costs. But the evidence was damning. The fake IDs he'd created, the forged documents, the offshore accounts. The paper trail was impeccable. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I surprised myself by standing up. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady despite my nerves. I'm not angry for myself. I've lived a simple life, and I was content with that. But I'm angry for the donors who gave their money in good faith. I'm angry for the real seniors who could have been helped with those millions. And I'm angry for my daughter, who built that foundation with genuine intentions, only to have it corrupted by someone she trusted. I looked at Marcus directly. You didn't just steal money. You stole my daughter's dream of making a difference. You stole the dignity of every senior whose name you might have used. And you stole years I could have spent with Victoria, because she was too busy managing the mess you created to visit her old dad. The courtroom was silent. But here's what you didn't steal. You didn't steal my daughter's integrity. When she discovered the truth, she didn't protect you. She didn't protect her lifestyle or her social standing. She chose what was right over what was comfortable. That's how I raised her, and that's who she still is, despite your influence. I sat down. Victoria's hand found mine and squeezed tight. The judge sentenced Marcus to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and theft over $5,000. The foundation was ordered to be dissolved, with all remaining legitimate assets distributed to accredited senior care organizations. Marcus was ordered to pay restitution of $3.8 million, though the recovered funds would likely be significantly less. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Victoria stepped to the microphones, and I stood beside her. I want to apologize, she said, her voice clear and strong. To every donor, to every senior who needed help, to the community. I was the co-founder of that foundation, and I failed in my oversight. I was so focused on the work we were presenting to the world that I didn't see what was happening behind the scenes. I didn't even see what was happening in my own family. She turned to look at me. My father spent his entire life sacrificing for me. He sold his home, worked himself to exhaustion, went without, all so I could have opportunities. And when I finally had the means to help him, I was too distracted by appearances and ambition to notice he needed help. That's on me. That's my failure, not just Marcus's crime. A reporter called out, "What will you do now?" Victoria smiled, though tears glittered in her eyes. "I'm going to spend time with my dad. Real time, not photo opportunities or publicity events. Just time. Getting to know him again. Making up for the years I lost to arrogance and blind trust." She turned to me. "If he'll have me. Always," I said, and I meant it. That was 8 months ago. Victoria didn't start another foundation right away. Instead, she volunteered at the same library where I volunteered on Saturdays. We sorted books together, helped seniors with computer classes, organized reading programs for kids. She sold the Casa Loma-style house she'd shared with Marcus and bought a modest 2-bedroom condo near my new apartment. "Close enough to walk over for Sunday dinners," she said. "If you'll cook." I never learned, did I? You always did it for me. So I taught her. Every Sunday evening, she came over, and we cooked together. I taught her my mother's pierogies recipe, how to make proper tourtière, the way to season a roast just right. We talked while we cooked. Really talked. About her mother, about my years at the school board, about her regrets and hopes, and the business she was thinking of starting. Something smaller, more personal, more real. She started dating again in the fall, a teacher she met at the library. Daniel was kind, wore off-the-rack shirts, drove a Honda Civic. When she introduced us, I could see she was nervous about my approval. He's wonderful, I told her honestly. He looks at you like you're a person, not an accessory. Her eyes filled with tears. I wasted so many years, Dad. No, I corrected gently. You learned. There's a difference. Last week, Victoria came to me with a proposal. She'd been contacted by several of the foundation's former donors who wanted to try again, wanted to create something new, something better. But they wanted her involved only if she could prove she'd learned from the disaster. I told them I'd only do it if you were involved, she said. Not as a figurehead, but as actual oversight. You'd review every expense, every claim, every decision. Would you consider it? I know it's a lot to ask after everything. Yes, I interrupted. On one condition. Anything. We start small. Really small. Maybe we help one family at a time. One senior. One struggling parent. We get to know them, understand their real needs, follow through personally. No galas, no photo ops, just actual help. She smiled. That genuine smile I remembered from her childhood. That sounds perfect, Dad. And that's how we're rebuilding. Slowly, carefully, together. This Christmas Eve, Victoria will be here again. But this time, there will be no diamonds, no designer coat, no husband with secrets. There will be flour on the counter as we make cookies, carols playing on my old radio, and conversation about the family we're helping next month. A single mom in Scarborough who needs help with childcare so she can finish her nursing degree. The champagne will stay corked. We'll drink tea instead, the way we used to when she was young and the world was simpler. Sometimes the most valuable gifts aren't wrapped in expensive paper. Sometimes they're wrapped in time, attention, and the courage to admit when you've lost your way. My daughter came back to me. Not because of a condo or a car or any material thing, but because she chose truth over comfort, integrity over image. That's worth more than all of Marcus's embezzled millions. That's worth everything.